Good afternoon, it's Don here for another King Don Ramble. And I know it's been a week or so since I've done my last one. It's just been crazy here at the house. We had a visitor from out of the country and we had Halloween, which is just crazy and things. So we're here today. Going to have a little chit chat. The topic is that was presented to me was you should talk about auto theft. A big crime in our community, and I think it's a crime everywhere. But to focus it a little bit, what do we do about auto theft? How can we address that issue? And some people say, well, what should the police do, or what should our city council or our municipality or our provincial government require or do to address auto theft? And we could potentially have a multitude of video rambles on that topic. I'm going to try to do it in less than 30 minutes, and we'll see where we go. Somebody one time asked, what should we do about crime in general, to a city council? And the reality is, I think you have to understand that crime has been here way back since the beginning of time, the Adam and Eve era. And crime will continue. And we don't want to hear that. We want to hear that we're going to solve crime. We want to get tough on crime. You commit a theft of a car, we should be able to shoot you in the street. And the reality is that's not true. Okay? It's not going to solve crime. It's not even going to touch the iceberg. You have countries where you steal a person's car or a person's horse, you couldn't, in theory, shoot them. And it doesn't matter how tough the sentence is, people still get sentenced for those crimes. So you can have a judicial system that allows you to end the life of somebody who took your car. And believe it or not, people will take your car. So, and I'm not going to say to get used to it, that's just the way life is. By all means, we need to address and look at ways to combat that offense. And we do that in practical ways. Even to this day, we find ways that we can address that. Cars are so far advanced nowadays. Somebody takes your car out of your driveway, you don't even have to phone the police yet. You could if you have a new enough car and the right options. Go to your cell phone, pull up the app, and disable the car. Person's driving down the road with their stolen vehicle, it is shutting off, and that. So I think, some people will say, well, how do we address auto thefts? I think it's not that we can eliminate it, it's how can we slow it down, right? We can, lock the doors, we can put the club on, I think get an immobilizer if that's something that you want. So there are ways to prevent theft of cars, but how do we deter it in a judicial system? Do we increase sentences? Well, here's the thing. Why are people stealing cars? Right? What is the purpose of that? Is it money? Is it to feed a habit of drug addiction? Money? Popularity? Right? Crime of, what do they call it? It's just somebody's looking for a car. They see crime of opportunity, I think is what it is. There's a car, let's just take it, right? Cars get stolen from 7-Eleven parking lots all the time because people go in, leaving the car running to buy a can of pop, and somebody just happens to see that the car's running, so they hop in and go, right? They didn't go to 7-Eleven to steal a car, they just happened to see that the car was there and going. So I think when we look at how can we address crime, we have to look at what is the cause of the crime. Why are people stealing cars? What is the purpose of it? Is it to get from point A to point B, people will steal a car and say Kelowna, drive it to Vernon, steal a car in Vernon, drive it to Armstrong, steal a car in Armstrong, and just keep doing that until they get to Calgary and then hop on a bus and go to Edmonton. Are they doing it for financial gain? Are they doing it to get their next hit? So you have to look at what is the root cause and potentially address those causes, right? If it's so that somebody can have an income, how do we make it so that stealing cars isn't lucrative, right? You steal a car today, within a week it's on a ship going to another continent. She might not get your car back, but the people that have taken the car, they got paid to take the car, and some big money, somebody's, right? So automakers have looked for ways and are looking at ways that how can we, within our own systems, ensure that people's vehicles are safe, right? We live in 2024. I'm going to start saying 2025 almost because it's so close. But we live in a day and age when technology can be our friend. And I think we need to, can we take that technology and put it into an older vehicle, right? Can we have vehicles, and I should have researched this and I might down the road, but it's a question is, can we take the technology that we have for modern vehicles that are coming off the assembly line today and put it into older vehicles? I can put an immobilizer into my vehicle. I can put a starter into my vehicle. I can put an alarm into my vehicle, older vehicles. So can we get that technology that would do something, shut off the fuel pump or something that will disable the vehicle on, say, in 1996? So that we look for ways to make crime less appealing, because you can't come into my yard and steal my vehicles if we have immobilizer systems in, and you can get aftermarket immobilizers, which mean, for those of you who don't know what an immobilizer is, it's a system that unless you pass like a fob or something over it, or have the right key in the ignition, or push a button or a switch, the vehicle won't start, right? It's an immobilized engine. When I worked for an auto company that had the T in their name, right, at the beginning and near the end, they had vehicles you had to have a fob and put it someplace, and that was never in the same spot. I was a detailer, so when people had their cars serviced, they got a cheap detail, vacuum, windows washed, wiped down with a cloth. But I found it very annoying when I was going out to a vehicle and you had to find it. Was it under the dash? Was it over by the wheel well? Was it under the seat? Was it up against the wall? Like, it was never in the same spot, and you were never told where it was. I had to learn where all the different spots were, and if it didn't work here, move the fob over there, and it was crazy, right? I know in some older vehicles, it's a switch, right? Some people actually will put a switch, say, on the fuel pump, right? And you hide the switch someplace, and unless you hit that switch, you ain't starting the car. So there are ways that you can create immobilizers for aftermarket in an aftermarket scenario. And I think sometimes maybe we should start looking at that. How can we make it so that it's not easy to steal a car? The fuel pump is the best one to immobilize, because if it's not, you can hotwire a car, and if you can find the from the front, if you don't know about a button to start the fuel pump, you're not going to get the car started. So I think that's something that we should look at. How can we, we can deter things with the club, and the club, I can get the club off of a steering wheel within a few seconds. If you know what you're doing, you can get the club off. If you don't know that there's an immobilizer switch underneath the back passenger right seat, you're never going to get the car, right? So I think that's how we can accommodate, what's the word I was just going to think? That's how we can tackle combat. That's how we can combat auto theft, is looking for ways within our society, vehicle or system, to immobilize it, I got actually, now that I was thinking about it, do some research to see if there isn't an aftermarket disabler that you can put in. It's app based in vehicles. Could be a challenging one to implement because the technologies for older vehicles isn't the same as now. And how would you feed that link to your vehicle? I know. I just think it's great. Car alarms are great options to notify you if somebody's gone into your vehicle, if you happen to be around the spot to hear it. The club will deter some people, but as I say, if I want into your vehicle and I'm going to take your vehicle, Auto Club isn't really going to solve anything. I can have it off your steering wheel pretty quick, right? And I only need one tool to do it. Locking your car, right? Don't leave your spare key in your car. I can remember my grandma used to have a spare key under the wheel well in this little black box. And if you knew grandma had that key, you could pull that box. It had a key to her car and a key to her house. And not necessarily something, the best way of doing things today, not secure. Right? If you are one of those people that have those black boxes, don't put it in the wheel well. Put it somewhere else so that people don't catch it. So, and I want to just share this. If your car is stolen, call the police, get a file number, and it gets pinned on the wall. In a mapping system, computer mapping, so they can find out if there's a high crime area and when crimes are happening. May not stop your car or your neighbor's car from being stolen, but it can put a potential. Do we need to increase police presence in a specific area around a certain time? Right? Is there a specific brand of vehicles that we need to be dealing with? I don't know if the province of BC still does it. We used to have a sticker you could put in your window, a CAT sticker, cat sticker, and if your car was spotted in driving around in a certain time frame, it would get pulled over. Right? It was a combat auto theft program. Vehicle would get pulled over. You'd have to identify and prove that you were supposed to be in that vehicle. I don't know if they still offer it, but it was a tool at one time. Maybe that's what we need to do. If a vehicle is in that high range of possible stolen vehicles, great time to do a seatbelt, a license check. Totally legal to do. So there are ways that we can combat or delay combat, lower the auto theft rate in our communities. It's never going to go away. If you think that we add more police, we're going to stop crime, it's not going to happen. Right? We can totally change the technology. Somebody who's got bad intentions will find a way around it. It's not going to go away. We can find ways to lower incidences of a specific crime, such as auto crime. And we can find ways to make it unattractable to steal vehicles. Okay. The federal government, for example, and the port authorities can scan every vehicle, every truck that comes in with a container, and if it's a vehicle, that has to be looked at. The vehicle has to be identified. Is there a similar vehicle in the database? Maybe hold those kind of vehicles for 30, 60 days so that it's not going to leave the country and get to other places. There's a whole array of things that we can do to combat thefts and how to intervene in criminal activities. And those should be explored and utilized if it's viable. Is there a guaranteed way to totally eliminate it? I don't think so. But we can have, right? We can have every single vehicle that you would have to have a thumbprint to access it. There's going to be a way around it, right? There's going to be a way somebody can think of to get around it. It's going to happen if people want to. Okay? Not going to stop it. I think sometimes crimes and people don't want to hear it. Right? You don't want to hear that the victim blaming, but I think there are things that the victims do that if they did something just a little bit different, someone will say put the club on. It's not effective 100%. If I want your car and you got a club on it, I'm taking your car. But if I'm looking for a vehicle to steal and I see a vehicle over here that has a club and a vehicle over here that doesn't, I'm taking the one that doesn't. Right? And I'm not going to steal your vehicles. I have no desire nor the know-how to hotwire your car. But if you give me right? But I do know people that have stolen vehicles, and that's their theory. If there's a vehicle here that is going to be harder to steal than a vehicle that's easier to steal, guess which vehicle I'm taking. And then if you put the club on, you have to put it on a specific way so that it's harder to get off. But as I say, if I want your club, I can off your steering wheel. I can get it off your steering wheel pretty quickly and with one tool. And I'll even give you the club back intact. Let me put it to you that way. Okay, so don't think that it's a guarantee. It'll slow it down. It might deter crimes of opportunity, crimes of convenience, but that's just the way it is. Locking the vehicles will help, and I'll actually have another topic where I'll tell you not to lock your vehicle, and the insurance company is going to hate that, but that's down the road. So best way to not have your car stolen would be to get an aftermarket immobilizer, because if somebody breaks into your car and they try to start it and it won't start, they're moving on, right? Unless you have a very high-end vehicle that's $250,000 base price and you got all the options, so it's $500,000. Most people just have a general common everyday vehicle. I'm just going to keep looking, right? The thieves are just going to keep looking. So that's where we are on that. So best way to reduce auto theft is to have immobilizers. You can get them in an aftermarket. If your vehicle is relatively new and that's something that is of concern to you, you don't want your vehicle stolen, that's what I would do, is put an immobilizer in. Or maybe even two. One that you have to pass a thing in and a switch. Right? If you have two immobilizers, it's double the protection. And if you can get past the one, you still get past the other one. And if you don't know where either, it'll just stop. It'll just stop. I know a person who will disconnect their battery. They'll break the circuit to the battery, so even if you start the vehicle, the battery is not going to help. And I know people that use it, the fuel pump. They'll disable the fuel pump so that you can't get the vehicle going. Or you can do what I do, and that's generally own older vehicles. Nobody steals those. Nobody wants them. There's no money in that. If they're taking my vehicle, chances are it's to get away. But if you're going to come to my house and steal a vehicle, you're not stealing mine. You're stealing my brother's. So, sorry. I mean, he's got a nicer vehicle than me. He's got the one that people are going to want to steal. They're not going to want us to take mine. There's no money in it. There's no value to it. There's no prestige in having it. It's an ugly old minivan, if you will, and they're not going to touch it. They'll take the pickup and they'll take the SUV, but they ain't touching the vehicle that I drive. So I'm pretty safe to say I could probably leave the keys in the ignition and nobody's going to touch my vehicle. That doesn't stop them from going into it. That happens often enough, but to steal it outright, no, they don't want my vehicle. So get an older vehicle or get an immobilizer. Anyway, if you like the content, hit this like button. If you want to be notified when I put up new content, hit the subscribe button. If you want to know your friends, share it. And if you want to help me pay my rent and my grocery bill, by all means, I would not hesitate to take a donation. There's a link for that in the channel description. All right. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Take care.